Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm late. Hi. We check the this. Perfect. All right then. Let me grab the SIG meeting or the meeting notes. Do we have notes? No, this is the wrong notes. All right, meeting notes. Let's do attendance. I need to copy the one below.
Minor point, Jonathan, but I noticed the meeting link on the calendar invite is different from what you posted in Slack.
What?
Or maybe it was just me. Did anyone else go through the calendar to join?
Yes, I noticed the same thing. I tried to join and it was kept on saying that the host hasn't joined the meeting yet.
That's because you duplicated the calendar event to your calendar and you haven't updated to the newest link.
No, I looked directly at the OpenSSF one as well because I thought that's what I might have done.
Let me try that one. Give me a second. Let me be right back. No, this is the right one. This is the 95793 957. Yeah, I've got the same number. Yeah.
Huh. When I
Yeah.
look at it, I see this link still. And then 255. I'm curious, did anyone successfully come over from the calendar invite into this meeting?
Oh, this is, yeah, so that is
Yeah,
different.
I did.
One. Yeah, the calendar invite from the community calendar, the link ends in 39, ends in 39.
All right, I'll correct. Oh, you know what I see? At the top of the invite where it says location, that is a different link than in the body where it says join this Zoom meeting. And I always seem to join in the description link.
Yeah.
All right. Minor thing, but we can fix that later.
Yeah. Can you ping operations about that? Can you shoot
As
operations?
Just
operations at OpenSSF will take. Operations is handled by Kahil and what's Amanda?
Okay, it's just operations at OpenSSF.
Yeah, operations at OpenSSF.
Yep, I'll let them know.
Please and thank you, much appreciated. Okay. Is Josh here? Josh is not here, so I'm gonna mark here. If you could mark your attendance for this meeting, that would be lovely. Yes. Okay, there we go. Hello, everybody. And Brian, let me mark you off as here. X, Aaron, you're here. Samia, you're here. Suli, sorry. Okay, all right. Let's start out with, do we have any new friends that have not been to this working group meeting in the past? Who want to introduce themselves? Hello. Oh, hi, Tim. We've interacted on chat, but I've never interacted with you in person in this capacity. So hello, nice to meet you.
Yeah, forget
listening.
Your
I'm wondering.
your mic's cutting in and out.
Sorry about that. Tim, I work at Modern. We work on Open Rewrite, and I do a lot of reviews and community work. So figured listen in here and see what we can do. Cheers.
Anybody else want to introduce themselves?
I'm Raquel. I'm also from Modern, and I'm particularly working on the CLI, the Developer Experience Team, and we literally use OpenRewrite to support automatic refactors in a platform.
If you would both be willing to add your attendance to the meeting notes, the top one, Autofix SIG, that would be wonderful. I've added you as the new friends. Welcome. So the item that we've been primarily working on is this specification for, oh, interesting. So Lee, you said you'd edited the document a bit, and I was like, I opened it up and I'm like, oh, this whole thing looks a little different. There's some background highlighting.
Yeah, for some reason when I pasted it, it kind of formatted on its own. But if you don't like it, I can try to see if I can edit the background.
I can take care of that, I think. There we go. Nope, I did not fix it. Highlighting, wait, is that highlighting or where is that coming from?
I think it's from the actual document. It just kind of merged the whole format into the whole entire file.
Yeah, interesting. In general, feel free to edit directly into the Google Doc instead of copying it out and back in.
This is the specification.
Yeah. If anybody wants to muck with the formatting and try to fix that, please don't hesitate to do, or please feel free to do so. Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from. Anywho, yeah, I know, right? So I guess for the new people who have not seen this yet, this is the proposal for specifying how anybody who wants to do bulk pull request generation to fix vulnerabilities at scale should engage in that work. I ran through this document with Brian Russell and the vulnerability disclosure working group earlier today. And we wanted to talk about one comment that Brian had. Oh, we lost all the comments too when you copied things. Can I?
If you go to history,
Yeah,
you can revert to the previous.
I'm thinking I'm gonna do that. Sorry, Suli, I'm gonna have to just, yeah. So where's let me screen share. Where is history?
It's like a little clock with an arrow around it.
Oh, that one,
That one.
right?
Yep. And then you might want to do the 1224 because I think that's maybe when she pasted.
Started this version. No.
Or I can just revert it on my end too.
Yeah, let me
Expand it. Expand July 12 and go down to anonymous. And then restore from that one.
okay. Yes.
There we go.
at least comments, yes. All right, so let's, yeah, so if you could edit directly in the document, that would be best, instead of copying and pasting it over. That works, Sully?
Suli, yes.
Yeah,
I got
sorry. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay. Brian, you left a comment here about metrics, and we wanted to put in some suggested metrics. I don't know what the specification speak is for, like, you know, errata or additional stuff, but
I think you can go with that. If people have strong opinions on other language,
Yeah.
they can suggest it.
um
Yeah, and I'll summarize for the group what that comment says. Basically, I think this process overall is good, but it's still very much kind of a first guess of what the process should be. So what I was suggesting was we basically set up some metrics to make sure that this process is delivering on the goals that we set out to solve. And it would give us kind of an indication of, is this working? Are there adjustments that we need to make? And if we do make adjustments, then, we can measure whether or not they were effective or not. If we, anything from a larger scale change to something as small as, let's change the text in the emails that we're sending out. Let's change the frequency of how we're basically contacting people. But just something that will help us baseline where we're starting at, and then, it sets us up for future changes such that we always kind of know, are we making this process better over time, or, do we need to re-examine kind of where we're at?
Yes. Yes, I agree. So it was my opinion that these shouldn't necessarily be in the protocols, because it's not really a protocol that you must follow in order to be compliant to the specification, but these are best practices, right?
Yeah, and I think, what I don't think should happen is approval of the metrics necessarily needs to block the specification process.
Right.
If this is better lived in another doc, or, you can basically say, this is just additional information on how we're going to track this process. However we can phrase it so that, when people are critiquing it, it's roughly two different things. You can improve the process, but you could also, suggest other things to track over time.
Right. Any feedback on that? So the current set of metrics that were proposed were number of closed or number of resolved vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Number of resolved vulnerabilities, percentage of resolved.
Yeah, and I should have put a denominator there, basically out of, the total ones that were opened.
Yeah.
Yep, per campaign works too. And I would also just say, I don't think we should necessarily set goals for what these metrics should be. We should just start measuring them and let that be our baseline when we put the process out there.
Right.
So these, I don't want to get too much in the weeds of the metrics, because metrics can always go down a rabbit hole. But these are more focused on success, but we can gain learning objectives from failures, so to speak, lack of a better term. So should we also include metrics on not resolved vulnerabilities, but closed without reason, or just identifying those that like they're just not working with us and they just closed it because they wanted to close it?
I mean, I think that'd be a great addition to this list.
There you go. Yeah, unresponsive.
It's not even just a number, like list of that. The list can give you insights into
Yeah, all of the above. So it includes
right.
the number of closed, the projects that they're not answering, the maintainers that are not answering.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think a percentage would be nice, like above that. I think there should be a list within that as well, but just something that, we could say this is the percentage that we have that is unresponsive.
Yeah. There's another one that I had.
I like the train of thought you're going, where we're identifying the number of public pull requests, but we should also identify the number of private pull requests that we've created and see which of the two processes works.
List of opt-out repositories. And rationale for their opt-out. Well, the goal is to go to private, right? So that's like, you know, the reason, or that's what we're driving towards, right? Is the number of private pull requests we can get.
Right, but you would also want to identify the number of private versus the number of public that you're creating.
Yeah, I
Right.
completely agree.
That so yes, so let me select this. So number of vulnerabilities that leverage private pull request generation for disclosure, number of vulnerabilities that must fall back to public pull request for disclosure. Why?
I don't remember the process from the top of my head, but I remember that there was, you can do it through the GitHub or the source code management system. There's also email. Do we want to take account of disclosures that are worked through emails? Or are we just going to be limiting to just the source code management systems?
So you're using both, right? And in the database, at least in so every single one will use issue-based versus non-issue. I guess, you know, number of, so this is I mean, this is kind of capturing like if they have PVR enabled or not, right? Or PMPVR enabled. But well, if they have PMPVR enabled, then you don't use email. But in all the cases where email is not where PMPVR is not enabled, you both open an issue asking that they enable PMPVR, and you send them an email with the vulnerability. So for context to those that are new, PMPVR is defined as up here. So PMPVR is defined as a programmatic means of private vulnerability reporting. So this is basically the ability to report a vulnerability to a project via an API that's not email. So this is for GitHub, this is PVR's private vulnerability reporting, which is a feature that's built into GitHub. For GitLab, this is leveraging private pull requests. I don't know if there's an equivalence for Bitbucket or anything like that. And you know, if anybody else has more experience with Bitbucket and knows how to disclose vulnerabilities privately via those channels, I'd love to hear from them. Oh, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Or have it enabled PMPVR due to outreach or as a result of this stuff, right? As a like,
Correct.
we requested it, and now they have it enabled.
Yes, that's to see our success in our communications.
A/B testing with issue messages.
Yeah, and then getting these numbers, how we get these numbers is a little different, but I think we'd have to identify ways to track how successful our communication is and how successful our pull request security remediation is. Those are the two things that I'm actually seeing from this, which I think are kind of covering everything. Unless other folks on the call have an idea.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add so much as I know whenever I've entered into a metrics discussion, sometimes we keep expanding the list of anything that we could think of, and I think the set right here is a good starting one.
Right. Right. I agree. I don't want to overdo it, and also the more you have to add, the more it's graphs and tables and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. There was a general idea of we wanted people to have the opportunity to go through. So I was going to send an email to the working group, the larger working group, and ask them to begin to review this document. Did anybody have any direct feedback on areas that we think that are missing? I know that is it Raquel? Is that how you say your name? Raquel and Tim, I know that you guys have probably, this is your first time seeing this document.
I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea behind this document is that we so the idea behind this document is that anybody else who wants to engage in this work will be able to implement this specification and be able to declare that their campaign, their bulk pull request generation campaign, would be defined as a OpenSSF compliant automated vulnerability fix campaign. The title, you know, if anybody wants to change the name, but that's what I've got so far. And these are the set of things that you must do. We have this disclosure flow chart, which has been was a topic for quite a few meetings, which shows like it in different cases how vulnerability disclosure would occur based upon various conditions. Then further down here, we have some scenarios that walk through like this flow chart and explain what decisions would be made based upon what scenarios. Down here, we have information about the patch and the code that we stuff about the code that and how it should be fixed, requirement for external review, that you must offer disclosure assistance. There's messaging, requirements for opt-out, discussions about the vulnerability fix origin and who must be generating the pull request. Requirements to maintain communication responsiveness with the maintainer, the ability to redeploy the changes, rebase or redeploy the changes. There was one other one in here that's, oh, this is still one that's under discussion. Is opt-out. There's been a discussion between myself and this project and who was it? Oh, it was Jordan Harbin. And the original proposal that we had for opt-out was that for opting out, we would ask maintainers to implement this security insight spec. In particular, defining, there's an example, there's a minimal spec. And they would drop this file in their repository if they wanted to opt out, but they would need to fill it out with accurate information. And the discussion we had during the last meeting, and Brian, you brought this up, was that maybe we could have a user interface that helped generate these security insight spec documents to make it easier for the maintainer. The problem was that there was no kind of defined timeline on that, and so without an alternative opt-out mechanism, maintainers would be left with a heavyweight solution for opting out if they so desire to do so. Yeah. I'm wondering if anybody else has any insights or feedback or suggestions around how we would want to handle maintainers that are desiring to opt out of these campaigns. The behavior behind the opt-out is not that they wouldn't receive, it's not that the vulnerability wouldn't be identified and fixed. It's just that the maintainer would not be reported to, they would not receive the vulnerability disclosure information at all. Like we wouldn't ping them at all. Any insights, thoughts?
So
about
what are you requesting? Additional feedback on it or additional thoughts to read it?
Yeah. I'm just like, we had some thoughts last week about like a standardized flag in the security.md. We had some thoughts about maybe adding a flag to the git ignore or the git attributes file. I have the GH robot standard that I kind of created when I started doing this work way back in the day. I'm wondering if we have is there, what opt-out mechanisms do we want to require that people implement, or do we only want to have security insight spec? The goal, yeah, I don't know, like, is there general consensus that the security insight spec is too heavy-handed or too big for us to force maintainers to use to opt out?
I myself am a little unfamiliar with the inside spec, so I can't speak on that, but if anybody else on the call has a thought. If not, remember that this is one of the first iterations, and as it goes through multiple hands and eyes, we could find additional feedback and other methods might come up.
I'll just add, I really like that idea of there could be iterations past this. I think that's, you know, that's just an important kind of thing to keep in mind with any process, that it can evolve over time and hopefully for the better.
So maybe start with this with just the security insight spec and then add more maybe if we need to. Okay.
I'll also add, I think it makes kind of getting consensus a little easier when, you know, if people have different directions they'd like to see, you know, implemented over time. Just saying this is our kind of our first pass at it. This is what we're going to do initially. Like, we don't know everything. That'll be part of us trying this.
Yeah, operator defined opt out.
Yeah, we can add like a version to this or something, and then a way that if you want to add improvements or additional recommendations to enhance this process or specification, here's how. But I think from what we have is a very good starting point. Besides trying to like beat everything to it without getting the different perspectives, unless, like I said, other folks on the call have other things that they want to see, but we do tend to have a reoccurring group.
The operator may define additional mechanisms to opt out beyond this specification that are unique to that operator. The behavior must follow 7 point. Two. Must follow. Oh, yeah, 7.2. I'm gonna yank this. And that leaves it general, so it's like the operator may define additional specifications. So Art's saying here, possibly still notify the opted out project that the vulnerability has been made public. Yes, they opted out, so that don't bug them, and they should be responsible for their decision. But OTOH, what's OTOH? What does OTOH stand for? On the other hand, a simple "this is public now" seems courteous and could help reduce surprises. Do not engage in any other way. I'm just concerned is like they've opted out, right? They've told us go away. Like I feel like that's like if you ping them via email or via an issue tracker, just a great way for you to get reported to GitHub when they've explicitly told you to go away. Thoughts?
Could you repeat the question, Jonathan? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Art is saying that so if you've opted out, you should still send them a simple "this is now public" message when you make it public. It seems courteous and could help reduce surprises, but not to engage in any other way in the process. And I'm of the opinion that if the maintainer has told you not to like if they've opted out, then they like it's like
I think it's
spam
just he's
filters,
trying
right?
to just identify, letting the maintainer know the risk of him opting out, which is not something that I see here. And I think was mentioned on a previous call was, hey, if you're choosing to opt out, these are the risks, which is we're going to be publicly exposing this. It's just kind of giving them like, this is what we're going to do because you're not, playing along with us. If you choose to, this is the side effects.
So yes, I'm fine with that, but my intention is communicating in the opt-out, right? Like you send them a message, an email or whatever, like, okay, if you want to opt out in the future, here's how to do that. But included in that original message is here's the implication of that, right? Making that very clear. So there's no surprises. So instead of being like reactionary, hey, you've opted out, so this is the impact, tell them up front, hey, if you opt out, we're still going to do this work. We're still going to refine these vulnerabilities. We're still going to make them public, but you're just not going to be told about them.
Could you just do it both times? I like the proactive approach too. I think giving someone one last kind of, hey, this is happening is also helpful. There are people who are at varying levels of being on top of their issues and emails. And I think that two is giving everybody a better chance than one shot.
Okay.
Yeah, and during the initial opt-out, they might have not read it because humans don't read.
I'm just thinking about like can spam, right? And can spam, you're required to have an opt-out of marketing emails, and like you don't get like another email being like, are you sure you want to opt out?
I see where you're drawing the comparison because they're both emails that hit you multiple times. I think this one's a lot more personal and has, implications that, me getting spammed by marketing does not. I also, I think by its nature, it's not quite a marketing email. And I think, I guess I've also watched people to the point of, like Yesenia is right, a lot of people don't read their emails, or, if they do, it's very spotty. I think I've watched people say, wow, why didn't you tell me? And you're like, well, I sent you that one email. I think your probability of surprises goes down just by increasing, or rather going from one email just to two. And I think it'd be different if you're emailing them on a weekly, daily, monthly basis with them saying I'm trying to opt out. But I think one extra is not going overboard here. And if we got strong feedback that, hey, I opted out and I wish you would basically have just left me alone, I think that's a data point kind of back to the process is going to be iterative.
Yeah, and that goes to our metrics. And the other thing could happen, it's like oh, I wasn't aware of it. Let me make sure that I fix this instead of just being opting out.
So if you've opted out, it's fine. Do you send them a message letting them know that they have missed a vulnerability that is now being disclosed publicly for every vulnerability you disclose? Or do you do it for only the first one, and then if they keep an opt-out enabled, then you don't let them know for any case in the future, for any future vulnerabilities that let's say you run, like, let's say you're fixing zip slip, right? You fix zip slip, they've opted out, right? So you say for the first time, because the opt-out just appeared, hey, you opted out, here's a public disclosure, you missed this, right? Why does it always sign me out in the middle of the meetings? Good Lord. And then
Justification.
second case, you find SQL injection, they've opted out. Do you
I
then
wouldn't
say
send
"Do
it
we need
again.
public, or do you say no?
If at that point, if they opted out, then they should just go ahead and we make it a public. But I think at the first instance where they're like, I'm gonna opt out, and it's like, this is the implementations of you opting out. As far as all security vulnerabilities that we will be reporting, it also brings them that awareness of like, it's not just this one, it's gonna be all of them. And then they can consider from there.
Okay. I can't write in the dang document because I'm kicked out of my. Why does it always do this on Wednesdays? At this, like, it's what is it? It's 2:40.
Could be session timeout. Probably a week-long session timeout. And since you did it last week, it's gonna do it this week at the same time.
All right. So the proposal here is that you only do it on first. For the first vulnerability after opt out, a message should be sent to the maintainers both via email and issue, letting them know that the vulnerability was made public. With a link to the diff, as well as clear of the after the first vulnerability, if the project how's that? For the first vulnerability after opt out is a message should be sent to the maintainer both via email and issue, letting them know the vulnerability is made public with a link to the diff. as well as their communications of the implication of their choice to opt out. Implication of the implications of opt out. For example, they will not be made aware of future will be yeah. How's that? Good, bad, ugly?
Reading. I don't know. Hmm.
Oxford comma, question mark?
Both email and then you put comma and issue. I don't know. My English is not very good looking, so I don't know. Grammar is weird. The only thing I would say is know that the vulnerability and those that follow for the project would be made public. So it's not just that one vulnerability, it's all of them.
That's this. For example, they will not be made aware of future vulnerability reported and they will be publicly disclosed immediately.
Perfect. I didn't get to that sentence. Looks good. I'll just ask Art to review it for his input.
Yeah. Okay. Brian, can we resolve this comment given this new chunk or given the updates we put in here, or do you still see this as relevant?
I'm paging it now. You're calling me, and I have to get context again on this comment. 1 second.
Yep. So just for everybody else, the topic is about trying to make the account that's creating the pull request look like an individual instead of a bot, or if it is a bot, like bot account, make it look like it's a legitimate account, not like some one like doesn't have a profile picture sort of account, yada yada yada. Like make it look like it's a legitimate, well-intentioned account that may be a bot, may be operated by a bot, but yeah. So the feedback here is like, okay, we will use bot accounts, right? But it should look like an individual account. It needs to appear like yeah, the account.
It needs to look like a bot, but one that a real human will respond to messages to.
Well, that's another point that I am not necessarily in agreement about. I think that theoretically, if the bot account at whoever's the operator, then both people will get the notification. So the responses don't necessarily need to come from the bot account. They can come from the operator as long as there's a system in place such that you get notifications that that there are. So basically,
responses to, not responses from. Responses
right,
to
exactly.
go to a human.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes. Let's see, there's a section about my real person.
If you need to clear out this account, feel free. I'm a little bit at a loss for if it's still relevant.
Right, this is not this engagement this does not define should, shall not, must not, may. There's no not may. This engagement may from a different account and the one that you may operate a bot account to create the disclosure or pull request, but the responses to them may come from the how's that sound? And I think we can resolve this.
I think that's okay.
Perfect. All right. Feedback. Oh, feedback. If you'd like to provide feedback and enhance specification, please refer via, I don't know. Right now. Or via need the link to the yes. Here. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, Art's there. Brian, you left a comment on March 3rd about automatically fixing, so avoiding patching test code exclusively. So this is written, automatic fix campaigns should attempt to avoid patching test code exclusively. If production source code is modified, then it should also be applied to test code as well. But if the vulnerability only exists in test code, the generation of an automated fix should be avoided. Or should, I don't know, should not be contributed, something should not be. Does this? Did the conversation in this thread, Brian Bellendorf, do you have any more comments on this topic?
I don't believe I do. I think this can be closed. Do we define what that heuristic is of trying to discern between test code and non-test code?
There is not a heuristic. It is a should, not a must. So the heuristic is left up to the implementer to define, but that there is an effort made to make this something that you operate as a heuristic, won't make you compliant with the specification.
Well, this specification is about how we are going to run as part of Alpha Omega an automated vulnerability fix campaign, right?
Sure.
Or is this a document that describes, in theory, if people are running these automated test campaigns out there in the world, this is a taxonomy and structure they should use?
This document is the latter. Alpha Omega may have a subset, may have additional restrictions that we operate under for this.
Okay, let's power through this fine, but I think we do need to quickly define what we at Alpha Omega are going to do. Like, what is our heuristic that we're going to use, and make that public and contestable, or that kind of thing. Like, I think it is important to be more specific than this in what we plan to do with our campaigns.
There is a heuristic that I've been using. The heuristic that I've been using is for open rewrite, at least. For open rewrite, I've been using this heuristic that checks to see if the source set is a test source set or begins with the name test in any capacity. That doesn't apply for other projects, but yeah, there's a visitor inside of open rewrite that checks to see if a given source file exists within a source set that has the name test in some way, and uses that to define if that particular file that you're patching is a test or not.
Okay, let's not rat hole on specifics of what we're going to do here. I think, given now that I know this document is more general purpose than fine as phrased, it's fine, but let's take as an action item soon that we've got to figure this out specifically for Alpha Omega's campaigns.
It was solved. It did work, and then Open Rewrite and the Modern team massively rewrote some of the scheduling stuff under the hood, and it broke the filtering that we were using. So we had to figure out a new solution there. But yes, it was there. It did work. It just doesn't anymore. I think that this is resolved as well. Provide some references. Okay, we can do that. Then topic of the title. Mike Dolan suggested that we maybe change the name. Xavier was proposing OpenSSF compliant security fix campaign. Does anybody else have any other names they want to propose at this moment? Or yeah, this is a very verbose name.
Maybe we shorten it into an acronym, but I think maybe marketing or legal could come up with a name, and then we just make sure that it meets the technical scope of it.
I don't want to add too many different gatekeepers on a document that I think we can still like. Let's not try to go for an acronym or anything too cutesy. I do think this is a specification, but we're not going to be setting ourselves up to certify other groups doing this, or passing judgment on them in any other way. So the word compliant does throw me a little bit. I think if you said guidance for running automated vulnerability fix campaigns, that's a better, more helpful term.
So RFCs, right? And whoever runs RFCs, in my experience, don't operate any sort of when they publish specifications, they
Yeah, the
don't
IETF.
also IETF, they don't operate infrastructure to verify against the standard to say that XYZ library is compliant with the HTTP 1.1 spec, do they?
No, but this is not a technical spec like a protocol. This is more about behavior and a set of. I mean, it's a step up from recommended practices. Thinking about the other documents that the OpenSSF has published, this is a little bit more like guidance for how to run coordinated vulnerability disclosure processes, right? Because so much here is left as a should, it's kind of like, I don't know that even a third party would really develop a certification process around this. So just, I was thrown for the word compliant as a part of this, because that does suggest a certification regime that we're not committing to.
How about just an OpenSSF automated vulnerability fix campaign?
Guidance. Well, this document, the title for the document should be guidance for running. It's not, because we don't want lots of other people saying, "Hey, we're running an OpenSSF automated vulnerability fix campaign," right?
That's actually the goal. No, that is the goal is to give a title that is anybody who wants to do this work can use, the OpenSSF, this document as a standing point of saying, like, we are compliant with what the OpenSSF said is the set of constraints that we must operate a campaign under in order to be following the best practices or whatever. But it is we are following the constraints that are set out by the OpenSSF. That is the goal, and we would like to be able to offer a title associated with that, just like the best practices badge has your 87% compliant with the best practices badge or whatever. Like, we would like to be able to say, if you follow these steps, you are compliant with this spec.
Well, even the best practices badge is something that people score variable amounts against, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
I get that, but we're being more strict in general on this.
Okay, I suggest bumping it up to the working group and CCing David Wheeler and saying somewhere on the spectrum between like the document that we published for guidance for vulnerability disclosure processes and something a little bit more rigorous or testable, or like the best practices badge. Somewhere we just need a term, and it'd be nice to harmonize those terms across the OpenSSF for the level of rigor or the level of seriousness, or some term here that I'm looking for that we want to accurately convey. Because I'm not sure of any other place where in the OpenSSF community we've used the word compliance. And that just has so much regulatory baggage on it that I'm nervous about that.
So term alternative to compliant, but something that still denotes that you are satisfying the requirements of the protocol.
Adherence, maybe?
What I don't want, here's what I don't want is a third-party organization running an automated fix campaign and telling its users, don't worry, we use the OpenSSF guidance. Because that by using our name when they run their campaign, people who receive these automated messages are going to be, seeing our name associated with something that could be pretty annoying. Even if we've carefully calibrated, for a non-annoying thing, I'm nervous about the use of the OpenSSF brand for third parties acting on their own, and merely self-attesting to this kind of thing. I want to reserve that for when we run our campaigns. So I think this looks a little bit more like here's our suggestions for how you should run your vulnerability disclosure, coordinated vulnerability disclosure processes as an organization. Here's our recommendation for people who do want to run automated vulnerability fix campaigns. The things you really must do. I mean, must and must not, and outside of a compliance regime is questionable, right? I mean, I'm bit nervous. And I that's my personal take. And maybe if you want more of the vulnerability disclosure working group stake, or even bump it upstairs to the TAC, that might be a way to resolve this.
Right, so that was the intention was, we write this, we run it by the vulnerability disclosure working group, we get approval that they sign off on it, and then also say, hey, TAC, are you fine with people putting a badge with this name on it, you know, on their work, stating that they are compliant with these set of practices, these protocols that we've defined. That was the intention. And I'm hearing that that makes you nervous as an idea. So, okay. All right, I'll talk to David Wheeler and I'll talk to the TAC. Okay. Oh, we are over time. I am going on vacation for 10 days on Tuesday, so I will be missing the next 2 of these working group meetings. Does anybody want to run this in my stead, or should I cancel the meetings?
I think
this is only.
I got 2 responses, Brian and Yodam. Yodam, go for it.
no, I don't feel comfortable running it. Obviously, maybe a Cena, but yeah, I think if no one else steps up, then we can safely cancel.
Okay. So we will be meeting in 3 weeks, and then DEF CON is happening and Hacker Summer Camp, and I presume most of us will be out, so we won't be meeting then. So it'll be 3 weeks out, and then a week gap, and then 2 weeks, and then we'll be back to a regular cadence. Sound good? Okay, all right. Thank you all for your time. I will catch you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Well.